Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indie Comics Explained. And today I have another fantastic guest. But before we get to him, please like, subscribe, share the video, and let everyone you know who enjoys comics to please come on over and check out the videos. I'm bringing over incredible independent talent, and I want everybody to meet these guys, see these guys, and support these guys. And talking about support, please, I got a Kickstarter going on for Tall Tales, so go check it out. The links are below. And without further ado, here's our guest. This is Brian J. Lambert.
How you doing, Comics, Indie Comics Explained. What's going on, JD? Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here, man. Thank you for being here. So, Brian, let's get right into it, bro. So, I mean, what was the genesis of? All right, let's go even further back. Okay. Right, let's go even further. Let's take it way back.
Let's
Brian. All right, let's do it all. So, when you first started, what were the books? I mean, because obviously you got into comic books, but we've all read comics, right? There's the Archie stuff and there's that other stuff, but there's always that thing that makes you say, "Yeah, that's the book," that makes you want to do the thing.
So I'm a big X-Men guy. I think everybody from our generation in total, if they say they weren't affected by that everybody knows the X-Men cartoon, right? But that started with that Jim Lee, for me anyway, started with that Jim Lee run that spawned out of Uncanny X-Men. And then he just went on to the regular X-Men title with Mutant Genesis. And the first time you saw Omega Red, those, I think, first, 12 issues of that X-Men Blue Team series, I was like, this is what I want to do. And obviously that's a long time ago, 1992. Right. Back in grade school. And then when Image broke off, I remember being a kid and you had never seen anything like that. Well, the industry hadn't. So we certainly hadn't. And then you have Image break off, which at the time they were like, anybody can do comics, because we're going to break off. If you guys want to do comics, come to Image. And so as a kid, man, that's what that meant to me. Like anybody could do it. The art was amazing. Obviously, looking back on some of those Image titles, the stories were, I don't even know what the stories were after issue maybe 6 because they were just all over the place. But the art was stellar. It had done something that had never been done before. Prior to that X-Men run, I had never seen Gambit, and Gambit was super dope. That whole era of comics, which has become the Image era,
right?
It just changed the shape of things for me, because before that you had the Silver Age stuff, which was good and it was fun and it was lighthearted and it was DC kind of dominated in a lot of ways, and that DC kind of stability of comics dominated. But then once you started getting into the Jim Lee, the Silver Street and all those guys, they're different styles. It just changed everything for me personally.
No, it's done it for me. Is a little earlier. I'm like John Byrne, George Perez, Marv Wolfman, that type.
Okay. Yeah,
that era. Frank Miller, especially.
Yeah.
Alan Moore. I'm that era.
Oh, okay.
Just one, just a few years before.
Yeah. So I ended up picking up most of all of that, after, because when Alan Moore you actually have to read Alan Moore. You can't just, brush over. You got to read every line and every little thing. And then at the very end, you realize everything you ever read ties in to everything else. And it's amazing. Old Frank Miller, I'll read old Frank Miller anytime. New Frank Miller, not so much, honestly. But old Frank Miller was amazing. I keep a copy. Anybody who's read my comics can see the Frank Miller influence and can look at it and say, oh man, this guy's read, Dark Knight Returns probably 100 times, and that wouldn't be an exaggeration.
If you're gonna read something 100 times, it's probably not a bad choice.
You're right. All right.
It's not a bad choice.
Yeah, Watchmen only got 2 or 3, just because that's heavy reading right there, man.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I've read as much was Walter Simonson's Thor.
Oh yeah, that was an amazing run.
Yeah, and Alan Moore on Miracle Man. I don't know if you ever read those.
Yes, I was. Very, very few people that bring up Miracle Man, and just that was so twisted. And again, so Miracle Man was one that I read later on in life as well. So it was just crazy to see that and to know some of the history of Captain Marvel's / Shazam and all that, and just how he did that was it was great. It was and Alan Moore's a genius, man. Honestly, if you read all of the even all the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen stuff, it's perfect.
Yeah. he is the mad scientist of our like I guess our generation, like that spans
Yeah.
50 years or whatever, because he is
Yeah.
but he's a great guy.
Yeah.
All right, so when you created Justice the Fall, right now, now what's your writing process behind that? Like, what do you do to like get into like how did you get into that headspace to create that type of story?
I think you said mad scientist, and I think that's probably the most apt way to describe it. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes I'll sit down in the same hoodie I'm in right now, throw the actual hoodie on itself, and sit down and I can write, until the cows come home. And then other days I'll sit and I write the 7,000 times and no words come out. So I try to pull from personal experience all the time. I think that's some of the best writing that you can get. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be you, but if you look at Stephen King, there aren't that many writers that would star in movies ever. Why are writers always center stage in Stephen King's work? Because he's a writer. He's pulling from his own experience. So I've tried to do the same. My family is they are a very church family. Originally anyway. So I mean I don't steer one way or the other thematically and narratively, but that's I grew up in a church. I grew up seeing these kinds of images and things like that. And I don't want to say prior to Justice the Fall, right? But there are very few images of angels of color. There are very few images that kind of turn what the normal narrative is on its head. That's something I always wanted to do. I love the like prophecy series with Christopher Walken, where Gabriel, he's kind of a badass, and he does the thing, and then somebody bursts into flame. That's dope. But those movies are also kind of weak because you just have like some guy who kind of beats him up or shoots him, but doesn't really hurt him, and then at the end, like somehow they win. I've always hated movies where you're fighting the supernatural, especially religious-based movies where you're fighting the supernatural, right? And then some guy is just like, God, please help me. And then they win. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, this dude can turn into a giant bat and do all this stuff. I was like, you can't do anything? Like, you have no defense. And somehow you win. So when contemplating or thinking about, like, the greatest war that's ever supposed to have been, and again, not necessarily in a religious context, just in a mythological context, just, Ragnarok or anything else. You're thinking about the greatest war that's ever happened. So in Norse mythology, you can have Thor, who's a total badass. And then in Christian, not mythology necessarily, but in a lot of people's thoughts, it's like, well, just talk to somebody or pray and then things will be okay. And it's like, dude, this is a war. Like, there should be things that go to war. And, again, if you're studying it, and not even in a religious sense, just in a mythological sense, there are people that go to war. There are beings that go to war. That's their whole purpose. So why not show that? Why not show people are so comfortable with, like, Spawn. Spawn comes out and they're like, oh, man, Spawn's dope. He carries a gun. He does all this stuff. And I remember when I first started releasing pictures of Justice, they were like, well, he's an angel. Why does he have a gun? Is he going to fight? And I was like, yes, man. What? Like, why wouldn't he? Well, why doesn't he have a sword? And I was like, what beat the sword in modern day? What is the thing that made the sword ineffective? The gun. Like, think about it, guys. Like, let's push these narratives forward as opposed to just staying back where we are, and just accepting what we've been, again, in a mythological sense, just accepting what we've been told.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at the Old Testament and you encountered an angel, you were not in a good place.
Bro, right?
You're not in a good place.
The first line they always have to say is like, it's either like, do not fear or fear not, or like they're telling, don't be afraid, because at that moment, like, you're obviously afraid. So there's obviously a reason. So it's like, I 100% built off of that, again, type of, without getting into the religious aspects of it, that type of mythology.
Yeah. No, I got you. I mean, I utilize some of that in my own writing. I was raised Catholic. So, going through the whole thing, going to church and baptism and, communion and the whole thing, you get, you understand the gravitas of what's going on,
Yes. Yeah.
Especially when, it's funny, like you kind of lose it in the middle of your life. Like when you hit, there's a certain age you hit, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah.
But then you notice that the older people in your life, they get back into it, right? And then you can see how serious it, how much it means to them. you know, and there's a reason for that. You know, I mean, it's very powerful. You know, that's why when I see your project, I was like, oh, that looks awesome. You know.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So when you write your scripts, do you find yourself laying them out? Like, do you sit back and say, okay, I'm gonna draw out a little map and I got all the strings, or do you just sit down and say, I'm hitting this page and I'm gonna hit it hard?
You know, treatments are my life at this point. I didn't, when I first started, it was one of those, oh, let's just go, right? But if you're trying to do a generational story or a story that's going to span 7, 8, 9, it doesn't matter if it's novels, comics, series, whatever, you've got to have a little bit of a blueprint, right? Because you can get halfway into the story and realize, like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't going to make sense. You know, at the end of this story, is it just going to be convenient that they win or that they lose or that this person dies? Or is it going to have a real, like you said, is it going to have real gravitas behind it? Is it going to have a real reason? So I will go normally now and write at least a bit of a treatment. Hey, this is from A to Z. This is where I want to go. I'm not going to put all the meat and potatoes in there because sometimes watching a story develop is the beauty of it. You're really, planting a seed in your own writing and watching it become, a tree, which is great.
Right.
So I do that a lot. I do that where I'll have a treatment, I have an idea, I start going, and then issue 2, wait a minute, let's change this. Issue 3, okay, we've touched this up. Oh, wait a minute, I just came up with something. So issue 7 now, we're going to bring this back around. It's always good to have some kind of a blueprint, some kind of a format, because it's really easy for creative people to get lost in their thoughts and to get, I think Todd McFarlane is the hallmark of that, or one of them anyway, right? Todd McFarlane, again, love Spawn, created this great mythology and all this stuff is going on. Right. But he got so lost for a while. And then you have David Hine come back and do that Armageddon arc and this amazing run. And you're like, yes, they brought it back. You know what I mean? So because Todd McFarlane is so creative and, he's got his thing going, he can get lost in that. So if Todd McFarlane can get lost, that means I can. So let's not get lost. Let's stay a little bit focused, and have at least a through line, even if it changes.
Right. All right, cool. Because I tend to sit down and just hammer. I don't. I plow through, and then but in the edit, that's where I really go hard. Because that's where I put my story together. Because it's like I feel that a story and editing, it's like silversmithing. Yeah. The more you beat the silver, the purer it's going to be. So you got to beat that story.
Yeah. And that's the thing that happens in indie and small publishing and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I've had it happen. Not had it happen. I've done it to myself before, where you don't edit enough. And editing is so important, and not just self-editing. I mean, I believe you should self-edit, but also have an editor, because there are things you are going to read what you want to be there, what should be there, as opposed to what is there sometimes. And it's not, you come back a month or two later and you're like, oh, I wrote that. Oh man, I wish I had caught it. You need another set of eyes on it to see what you're talking about. Editing is so important to story.
I always suggest, like with myself, like I'll write a story and I've put them down for 6 months at a time. I just set them to the side. I say, I'll come back to you. 6 months later, I was like, oh, what the hell?
right. Yeah, because your eyes are fresh at that point. Yeah. Yep. It's a couple things in my first novel when I went back and I was reading it, and I'm slowly doing like an audiobook for it just for fun, and throwing it on YouTube or whatever. And I was like, did I write that sentence? Oh, is that in the book? Oh, geez. And just on the fly. And again, that's after the editing process. That's after having somebody go over it. So it's important to just be aware of your narrative voice and what you're doing, why you're doing it, and even how you're doing it, because you might forget. Yeah. You do get lost sometimes in the stream of consciousness of just, like you said, banging out the story. Once it gets going, that's a hard thing to stop, and you don't want to.
Exactly. It's funny. I've only read 2 or 3 books on how to write, right? But one of them, and one of the influential ones that I found influential to me, was Stephen King's book on writing. Yeah. And the one piece of advice, well, there was a couple pieces of advice, but this one particular piece of advice I really enjoyed was he's like, that first draft is for you. Put it all in there. He says, but understand that second draft, you're gonna have to kill your children.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
You
Stephen
know.
King is. I love his. I love his writing style. Obviously,
Mm.
I love 2/3 of every book of his that I've probably read. His endings always kill me though. I'm like, dude, did we just run out of stuff at the very end? Like, but he can take the ordinary and the mundane and make it extraordinary, which I think is an amazing talent.
Yeah.
And his ability to not only do it but like you said, so I've read his book too. For his ability to be able to translate what he does and explain it,
Yes.
so that you can kind of apply it, I think it's a great thing.
It is.
It's a
It
really
really
good
is.
thing.
What's funny is it's the only book of his I've ever read.
Really.
Yeah.
Oh man, I like most of his older stuff. Salem's Lot and even It, and some of the imagery in some of those books is you just can't beat it. Needful Things. I like I said, personally, I like a lot of his older stuff more than I do his newer stuff. I was not really a Black Tower fan. Like, I wanted to be really, really bad. I really, really did. And then I got like halfway through it, and I was like, sorry, Steve. Sorry, bro.
Just can't do it.
Yeah. I wish he hadn't tied all of his books into the Black Tower series and all of them together. I think there are some parts, and this is just me. Stephen King might be knocking on my door tomorrow trying to sock me for saying the wrong thing. But, I think he was better off not tying some of the stuff together, and just, creating the way he had previously created as opposed to what he ended up doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Like I said, I haven't read enough of. I haven't read any of it, so I couldn't even tell you. I've only seen the movies.
Again, I think the movies translated. Look, I'm going to name the same movies as the books I just read because I think they translated pretty well, though. I think they did a really good job in most cases. I'm actually really looking forward to the Stand that's supposed to be in production now. So I'd like to see what they do with that, especially with Corona and everything else, on the docket in real life.
Right.
See how they handled it, in terms of that.
Yeah. What is it? I think which one was it? The Fog.
Mm-hmm.
With that one. I love the fact when Stephen King says, I wish I came up with that ending. This is hilarious. I was like, you hear him in the interview. He's like, I really wish I came up with that ending. It's just like, but it's admirable to see that he can accept that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's mature. He's like, all right. I get it.
Yeah, right. Right.
All right. So let's get back a little bit more into process. So, like, what type of script do you write? Are you writing like a Marvel style script where it's just some descriptions and then you just let the artist go, or you writing like a full DC script, panel one?
I'm a panel for panel guy, man.
Gotcha.
I didn't originally start out like that. When I first was like, let's write a comic book or whatever. And this is years ago before I got into it. Now quote unquote professionally, it was definitely that Marvel like, oh, it should look cool here and do. But as I matured as a writer myself, I realized that what I want to see in my head, especially doing my own project, right? What I want to see in my head is what I want to see on the page. And the only way to bring that to the page is to describe it. Now, I don't want to say all of my artists are top-notch guys. Right. So I might send them a panel description that says, Justice, shot from behind, Justice punches villain in the face. And then they send me a completely different angle. It looks something completely different, but they are so dope. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I wrote. I did that, I let them do their thing. I let them be great. There are occasional situations and panels where I'm like, nah, I need it to be exactly like this. Like, draw it exactly like I said it. But art and writing, especially obviously in comics, has got to be a partnership. You've got to trust your guys. They've got to trust you. If they don't understand, then you've got to explain it a little bit more. If you don't understand why they did something, then they've got to explain it to you a little bit more. But I'm definitely a panel for panel, bird's eye view, worm's eye view, focus, POV. I'm giving everything. Sound effects. Right. Here's this balloon. Here's your bold. I've even done. I did one script writing, tutorial video based on the template that I use, that I find beneficial for me.
Right.
And even though it does when I first started using it, it took a little bit more time because it's more structured. If you're just writing prose, which is where I come from, if you're writing prose, man, it's awesome. Even if you're messed up, again, your editors are going to go back, hey, man, they should have been 2 paragraphs. You could write, 2 pages, no separations. They're going to break it into paragraphs for you, tell you where to do some of your breaks and stuff if you miss all of that. So prose, you just go ham. Yeah. You can't do that with a comic script. You also have to remember, okay, man, hey, 3-4 lines of dialogue, that's lengthy in a comic, in a panel. So you've got to, there are a few more mechanical things that you've got to deal with. But for me, I find it's just so much better when I'm getting out exactly what I want to get out. There's a mood and a tone, I think, that certain writing styles, again, if you're talking about your Frank Millers, you're talking about your Spawn type comics, even Dan Jurgens, he did Death of Superman, right? I love Death of Superman. I think it's an underrated. I think the last issue, because I have the trade and I always refer to it as the trade. I think that trade is an underrated issue because nobody goes back and remembers the narrative voice that he put in there. One, every page is a splash page. Those are full page layouts. And you're watching Superman die. There's very little dialogue, but it has so much gravity to it. So he was in there writing it, and his narrative style, he was telling the story there. So sometimes to convey that narrative style, that darker kind of mentality, and to get the emotion there, you've got to write panel for panel. Your artist they're going to be dynamic. They're going to do great stuff. Yep. That's why you trust your artist. Sometimes to put the correct emotion to what you're doing, in my opinion, you need the writer there to say, hey, this panel specifically, this panel next specifically, this angle specifically, because, artists are on this humongous canvas. If you give them a wide shot, they want to go wide because then they get to draw everybody in there and all these details. And sometimes the devil is in the details, but like in the smallest way, when you have a real close shot of your character or punched in a little bit, because again, you're trying to do something with the narrative, something specific with the narrative. At least that's how it works for me.
No, that's an incredible point. I don't work quite as structured, but but I get it because it's funny. Like when I do work that structured, because I've done it, I've found that I rarely ever get what I want. Okay, but I have been pleasantly surprised every time. You know what I mean? Like I'll get something. It wasn't what I was expecting or even wanting, but I've always enjoyed it. So I mean, I've just been lucky.
Yeah. I have one page in Justice Zero where Morningstar, and this is no spoilers because it's been out for a while. Morningstar is actually smoking a cigar, and you've got the panels there. So in the panel description, the original panel description is like, a full face shot of Morningstar kind of in silhouette. So you only see half of his face. He's got his cigar. And then it's, 3 like basically inset panels in there that were just supposed to tell the rest of the story that he's talking about. Right. I got it back from an amazing artist, a guy named Hakan Aiden. And he had Morningstar smoking a cigar, and the smoke from the cigar made those little inset panels. Nice. And when I got it, I did the same thing. I was like, that's exactly how I saw it, and I wrote it. So I'm going to take credit for this amazing panel sequence, and thank you. No, like you said, you get pleasantly surprised when they know you and you know them, and you can kind of communicate that. You're going to get some great material. Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to, like I said, I work with some very, very talented artists. So I've been fortunate enough to have that. Gleitson Robiero did one of the most beautiful, if not the most honestly beautiful picture of Justice. It's a 2-page layout. It's a poster. It's everything. It's perfect. And I gave him, my instructions. I gave him the reference material and stuff. And he just killed it in a way that I couldn't expect. As well as Nestor Rajula did with the colors. It's just amazing. But again, going off of my little, hey, this is my input. And then they killed it. And like you said, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even tell you. You sit back, you be like, oh, okay, all right, sure.
Yeah, right.
You're like, okay, why not? All right, so obviously you've worked with a lot of artists, and now are you working with guys from the U.S., overseas, both?
A little bit of both. My main team has ended up being mostly out of Brazil now.
Mhm.
My current team is what I should say. We're running a couple books consecutively, production-wise.
Right.
So most of my main team is in Brazil. I have one or two people in the Philippines. Obviously, a couple of us here in the States.
Mhm.
So we're kind of international, I guess.
No,
International comics here.
yeah, I know. My artist is out of Chile. My
Yeah.
other artist is out of Colombia. My other artist is out of Indonesia. So yeah, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The only other one is the one I sleep next to. My wife. She's an artist.
Okay.
She draws the other comic.
Okay. Nice. I wish I had, for lack of better words, I wish I had in-house talent. I wish. Hey, babe, I need a pinup. Hey, I need a pinup. I would love that.
Yeah. Oh, I do that all the time. She's like, yeah, get online. She's like, I'll put you on the list, buddy. It is.
Nice.
She's like, yeah, because she's at home all day, and all she does is art.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh yeah, well I got 3 other commissions. You're on the list.
Yeah, get in line.
You get online. You're like, I'll buy dinner.
Yeah.
Sometimes that bumps me up a little, depending where I go.
Nice.
Well, one of the questions, the reason I was asking is I working with the international talent. Do you sometimes ever find that you have like that weird miscommunication where it's just like that language barrier?
So I would say under normal circumstances, yes. But in my other, profession, like my career until I'm producing comics nonstop, I work with a lot of international people already. So I've always had, iTranslate, Google Translate, all this stuff just on my phone, just, regularly. My sculptor is actually who's doing my 1/6 scale figure statues and stuff. An amazing guy named Jalilson Santos. And he's from Brazil. And I think it happens the most with him, but it happens in the funniest ways. So we'll be talking, and I keep the lines of communication open, so we're talking all the time. And then I can tell when he gets like excited or happy, or it's like exactly what he wants, because we'll be talking, we'll be going back and forth. And then his last message usually comes in Portuguese.
Right.
And so the first time it happened, I was like, wait, what? And I had to remember, okay, it's not Spanish, it's Portuguese. So put it in iTranslate. Okay, this is what he said, and I just responded. And after the second or third time, he was like, oh man, I'm sorry. I wrote it in Portuguese. I didn't even realize. But he was like, I didn't realize because you responded. And I was like, yeah, man, don't worry about it. I got this. I mean, I was acting like I knew Portuguese. Obviously, I don't. But it's been those kind of like, I guess, happy accidents where if they don't understand, they'll say, hey, I don't understand what you mean by this or that. Right. And I do the same thing. I don't understand what you mean. I've also made it a point, and I think it's actually helped my scripting as an American, as a person who speaks this language all the time. Sometimes, and as a writer, we put in big superfluous words, right? I don't need to use superfluous, right? Like if we're talking right now, it makes sense, but I don't need to put that in a script at all. But that's like our nature. We're going to do that as writers. And so it's made me kind of step back a little bit, take another second or two to think and say, what's a smaller word to say exactly what I wanted to say? What's the easy word? Because at the end of the day, it's not like prose. It's not like a novel. No one else is reading these scripts but you, and the artist and the letterer and the editor. But the public is just getting the dialogue and stuff. So, pare it down.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. So I do a weird book. I have a magical mouse, and I have like a bunch of fairies, and I have all these other crazy races, and they all live in New York. So, but one time I told my artist, I said, okay, there's this race of beings that I have living in Central Park, right? And they're like tiny. They look like teddy bear hamsters, right? So I said they look like teddy bear hamsters. Now, we all know what a hamster looks like. I don't know if you know what a teddy bear. They're just hairy. They're just hairy hamsters. That's all they are, right? So I send that to her. I get back little bears, and I was just like, and they look really good. I was like, just go with it. I just left it alone. I was just go with it. I was like, I'm not gonna, it's fine.
Yeah, sometimes you got to take the L because you realize it's your fault. Like, oh man, that was me. I should have done that a little bit better. And if it works, it works. So you got to just kind of live with that a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. And what's funny is that like later on, I think she realized what happened, and she was like, "Oh, that's what he meant." So then she draws like, like if there's a smaller person from the same race, she'll draw them looking like that.
Oh, nice.
So you have like a tiny wizard, who looks like a damn hamster. I was like, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, whatever. Jade is incredible. She's oh man, I don't know. She's like my. Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. She's great. I mean, it's fantastic when you find an artist. I mean, like I said, I talk to a lot of people and you hear some of the horror stories, and I'm just happy that you found like great guys to work with.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, but it's not easy. So I know I don't want to say I know a lot, but I've had people hit me up, and so one thing about this business is the networking part is great, but at the same time, you and I, right? If I just meet you, I can't be, so hey, who's Jade and what's her price and what's this and what's that? We are in a field of freelancers, all of us are. And if we have a working relationship, you and I, then we can have those kind of communications and stuff. But it's very, again, I'm gonna use a big word, but it's very disingenuous for me to just barely meet you and then ask you for basically your life's blood. And to not understand that there's some legwork that I need to do as well, because your price may not be my price. I might be doing a different project that's more in depth, for the artist. So the price is going to go up. There are, just so many layers that go into it, and it takes time to build that up. I didn't just, my first artist wasn't just the guy. I had this guy, and okay, let's get a commission from this one, and let's see how this one works with the script, and it's a process. Just like you have to learn how to write a script, you have to learn how to build your team, and you have to learn which artists work with you and which colors. You might have an amazing colorist, but maybe they don't work for how your book needs to look. There are some amazing artists that I want to work with. They just don't work with what I'm doing at the moment, so I've got to wait.
Right.
And it's part of that is the learning process. You've got to learn these things. You've got to not just figure them out, but you've got to do the legwork of being in there and quote unquote being in the trenches and figuring it out, and having a time where everybody's quick to release pinups and I got this new character and I got that new character and I got this new character. No, man, sometimes you have to sit back, cultivate your project, and and work in the shadows, for lack of better words. And just make things happen, and again, build your team, build the bonds of your team. Like I said, I'm very fortunate, and there's a certain member on my team now who, when we first started working with them, their family didn't even believe in their art. Their family was ready to, just, hey, no, you go get a factory job, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to support, this. Right. And I had the opportunity at the time to give him a project, and here's the project, here's the money up front. I believe in you. Let's get this done. Like, let's show everybody, not just for me and for my project and for Wingless Comics, but let's show everybody that there's a reason to believe in your art. And we've done a couple projects since then, and now his family is on board, and I bring that up to say that that's cultivating your team. At the end of the day, I could have just been like, okay, well, we're going to go with somebody else, or, sucks to be you, your family don't believe in you. Okay, well, cool. I don't care. But when in this field, we're asking people to believe in us, believe in our storytelling ability, believe in what we do, believe in our vision, believe in our narratives, believe in these dreams that we're casting out. So I believe we have a responsibility to do the same for others, and that's how you build your team. Believing not only because you saw somebody's art is dope and you want to use them for that, but again, we're going through Corona right now, right? So as soon as it started up, man, I hit up all my artists. Hey, how are you guys doing? And I had a couple of them. Hey, man, I'll get the pages to you in X amount of days. I'm not asking about the pages. I don't care right now. What I care about is, are you okay? Is your family okay? Is there anything that we can do to help? Do you need any help? And that's, again, part of building the team and building your network and the things that are actually more important than comics that make your comics great.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a situation like that with my artist, Jade. She had an accident. She fell and she broke her hand. So, and it was her drawing hand.
Yeah.
And she told me, she says, look, if you want to find somebody else to do the project. I was like, no. I says, you're it. It says, you're the person for this job. It says, I'm not finding anybody else. If she would have told me, we're done, that's fine. Yeah. But that's fine. But I'm like, for as long as I'm doing this project and I can keep on going, she'll have a job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I said, no. I said, heal up, get yourself together, and we'll start up again. And 10 weeks later, she was healed up, and that was it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you say, no. I says, he says, you're secure with me.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really building a team, You really have to put. I mean, profits. No one starts in the indie game for profit, and if you do, you're a fool because it's not going to happen. It's not going to start that way. You can make profit, but you're not going to start that way. So knock it off. So if you come into the indie game starting for profit, you're a fool. But if you come into the indie game starting for a team and starting to make a team and to build something, then like you said, the way you did it with Jade, that's the way you go about it. Build your team, find your people, find the people that work with you, not just the flashiest or somebody else's art that you saw, the team that works for what you're doing and a team that you can build on. That's what's important.
Yeah. So let's talk about Kickstarter, man. So I mean, I know you got one going for Justice.
Yes.
Like what else can you tell me about? Like how long has it been running? How many of these things have you done?
So technically, this is Wingless Comics' first Kickstarter. This is the inaugural. This is the baby. So this is Justice issue 1. I was attached to another Kickstarter myself, but not as Wingless Comics. That one was also successful. So far, we've outpaced that previous Kickstarter, kind of by leaps and bounds, which is great for, again, what we're trying to build. It's always great to build on things. So we're almost 2 weeks in. We're 12 days in. We got another 17 to go. We're already over $5,000. We've already smashed the goal, which is great, but we've just layered on stretch goals, left and right. A bunch of new posters. Malachi Bailey's Her has an exclusive poster that's going to be exclusive to the Kickstarter. One of my other characters, Calderon, that people may be aware of, he's got an exclusive, what I call the Ali poster. We're coming out. One of the stretch goals is a mini comic, a Justice mini comic, another 12 to 14 page comic that we're going to tack on there. The sculptures, like I said, 1/6 scale. So we've got some 12-inch Justice sculptures. We've got a 12-inch Calderon sculpture.
Wow.
They're just tons of stuff, man. I tried to make it as beneficial for backers as possible, while also staying obviously cost efficient and effective. There are some cameos in there. Our entire cameo tier got bought up within the first, I think, hour and a half.
Wow.
We have a crossover coming. Wingless Comics, Constant Hustle Comics, and Concept Moon Studios. We're doing a crossover together called Nightfall that will debut on Kickstarter in October.
Nice.
It's going to be a 5-part crossover that we do obviously in pieces. And there are some cameo spots in there. There's the higher tier package now. If you get the Nightfall package that comes with the shirt, the posters, signed copies of the books, a cameo, just chock full of things and extras for everybody. The Kickstarter, like I said, it's in a really good place, and Wingless Comics is in a really great place. We're able to work with the people that we want to work with, tell the stories that we want to tell, and bring it to the people that are asking for it.
Nice. So, now, what are the plans with the series? So, I mean, obviously you got your issue 1 coming out. Like, is it a limited series? Is it something you intend to go ongoing?
It's an ongoing series, man. If I can beat Todd McFarlane's longest running indie comic, I 100% will. It's an ongoing series, definitely. The first 4 parts are entitled The Fall, and that'll be that first story arc.
Right.
But I've got 72 issues planned, so I got no plan on stopping anytime soon. And that's not in addition to Wingless Comics. You're gonna be the first to hear it. Oh, let's do some exclusive stuff. Yes. So Wingless Comics will have a yearly crossover.
Nice.
So the first year, the crossover is Nightfall. And obviously we'll be working with different companies, some of our brother companies, sister companies, stuff like that. So our year 1 is Nightfall. Our year 2 and 3 are already planned out. So Malachi is probably going to hurt me when he hears it because no one has heard the name or knows anything about it yet except for our partners. But year 2 is going to be Paradise Lost, and year 3 is going to be Necropolis. So these are not plans where we've just said, oh, we're going to do some stuff and maybe innovate. No. There is a solid plan. We're already ready to go. We're already putting the pieces together. And again, there will be an ongoing Justice series. There will be an ongoing Her series. There will be an ongoing Calderon series and a few other surprises.
That's awesome. Now, are you planning, are you going eventually You know, I know now you're just doing a Kickstarter, but you eventually planning on full release like Diamond and well, now there's a couple other distributors.
Yeah, that's the plan. Also, I'm man, that's a hard thing, right? In terms of distributors, that's the hard part, right? Because how are things going to shake out? There is 133 Art, MV Media, and I think it's Hero Studios just started a black-owned distribution company, which obviously I work with 133 Art that will be doing the printing for our Kickstarter. So I have not submitted yet because it just hit the presses 2 or 3 days ago. They just press released it 2 or 3 days ago. I'm definitely going to be engaging with them. Wingless Comics is definitely going to be engaging with them. We are going to assist in any way we can so that we can see them reach their goals and also us reach our own. I think the quote unquote dismantling of Diamond, there is some good to that. Now, I don't necessarily like who DC is going with, being that there's some of them are comic companies and comic books stores themselves. I don't necessarily like that, but I also didn't like the stranglehold Diamond had on there. How as an indie are you going to get in there without, you got to be 10 years in the game to even get in their catalog or something ridiculous. So I like some of these smaller distribution centers and distribution companies. I love the idea of it.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
All right, because like I said, I've been in the game a long time. I started my first 91 is when I first did my first book.
Okay.
Right, and at the time there was about 13 different distributors. Okay, so now at that time, like a small, not well known indie company could sell 2,000 to 5,000 books, easy. Okay. Now it might take you to relist to get that done, but you can get that done. You could do a 5,000 book print run, release it. You'll probably sell 2,500, depending on how you advertise. So 3,500 books. You'll be sitting on some, but then a few months later you relist, and then you can clear out the rest.
Yeah.
Right. Now through Diamond, you'll dance the glory that you sold 800 books, right? And realistic, forget that. That's just not something they do. So yeah, I'm excited that this is happening because, like I said, I mean we have 13 different distributors, and I mean once it got down to the one, I worked with them for a while. My sales just weren't reaching what they needed to reach, and I was just like, what am I gonna do? And it was just like, okay. So we ended that relationship, and then we were just doing shows. And then I ended up in some other Tall Tales ended up in some other magazine that we do that was called Furlough, and it ran in there for like 50 issues. And then Kickstarter came up, and I was like, okay, this is the way to go.
Yeah. I like Kickstarter a lot, and Wingless Comics has and will always use it more as a pre-order service than anything. I refuse to use it as a book production fulfillment service. Now, again, I realize that I have a stretch goal, and it's a mini comic that I am using for that. That's a completely different circumstance. That's a stretch goal. The main books will never be done like that. The main books will always be done. And like I said, this will be a pre-order service because I've seen too many companies, too many indies do that and then just skate off with the money. Or, it's a year and a half and then you get the book or some other crazy, nonsense. I'm not about that. I feel like if you don't have the money to produce the book, then wait. I'm not going to say don't, right? But at least wait. At least wait and save up some of the money. Save up the money. Save up the money to get it done. So that people aren't waiting. Again, I don't want anybody waiting 6 months for Justice the Fall issue 1. You know what I mean? Like, no one's going to be coming in December like, oh, I still haven't got my copy. No, yes, you have. It's out there. It's to you guys because the book is already done. Yeah.
Whenever this subject comes up with like how to finance the stuff, and you want to do that, because for Tall Tales, well, for the Oswald Chronicles, I'm 1,000 pages in. Okay, so I got a huge body of work. It's already done. I probably got another 1,500 pages to go. That's fine. I'm gonna do whatever I got to do to get it done. Yeah. So yeah, when you said you got 77 issues, I understand.
Yeah, yeah, right. Got a lot to talk about.
Right, exactly. So I understand. Like, yeah, I feel you. You know, we're there. But I tell people, I said, listen, I says, if you really got a story you want to tell, you want to go and want to do it, but you don't have a lot of cash, think about what you have, what you can do weekly, and commission an artist to do 1 page a week. Okay, you do that, 52 weeks, you got 52 pages. Within 2 years, you'll probably have a graphic novel.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a 3-issue limited series.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's I think the way to do it, you know?
Yes. Sometimes it takes time. I know that putting this together, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to work with a lot of people in the industry, quote unquote, and do a lot of editing, do some writing, and do, you know, some other stuff and get some credits under my belt, which obviously helped me speed up production. But again, that's one of those things too. I can't be so close-minded and only like winglets, right? Of course I am. But at the same time, in order for winglets to get going, then I do have to, just like an artist, I got to take commissions. Right. Oh, hey, somebody's got an editing job. Brian, do you want it? I'm a little busy, but hey, okay, send it my way, you know? And sometimes you've got to dive into projects. You've got to keep your integrity. I'm not, in no way am I saying sell out and just do anything.
Right.
But in order to make the money, in order to do what you want to do, you're going to have to take on other projects sometimes. You're going to have to attach yourself to other things so that you can generate that income. Yeah. That's life.
That's life, man.
And it only helps, man. The more that you edit, you know, the better editor you're going to be. The more that you write, the better writer you're going to be. The more that, you know, and everything else. So, you know, don't be afraid to kind of get in the trenches and see if people need help and see, you know, where you can get paid for doing what you already love.
Just keep doing it. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
All right. So we've been at this for a little bit now. We're coming close to the end, but we're not done yet. All right. Okay. So, all right. Before we move on to my goofy questions, because I got some goofy questions.
Okay.
You, all right.
Okay.
Well, before we get on to those, one, is there anything that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask you? Like anything you want to discuss?
I think it's very important, and it's important to every discussion, not specifically to this one, but obviously we know the time we're in right now. We know the killings, the murders, the lynchings, the everything that's going on. It's a very chaotic time. The presidential campaign's coming up, COVID, all of these things. It's very important not to lose focus, not only on those things, but on yourself as well. Mental health is very, very important. As artists, we know that we deal with the gamut of emotions, just like every other human being. Sometimes we're not the best at getting them out. Sometimes the way we get them out is on paper. Sometimes we can't get them out. So it's very important to protect your peace, guard your mental health, fight the fight where you can in your ways. Every way of fighting the fight is important. I personally have never steered away, nor am I afraid of losing supporters for speaking what's true. I'm never going to peddle hate. But the moment that I say Black Lives Matter, if someone counters with All Lives Matter, we're going to have a discussion about it, right? The people that are under siege, the moment that I say get these kids out of ICE camps and somebody says, well, they shouldn't have broken the law, like, one, I'm going to want to slap you because they're children, first of all. And then, you know, that's beyond the subject. There are things that we consistently need to fight for, I believe, especially as artists, because we have people listening to our voices. So I believe that we have a responsibility to speak up in a way that uplifts people, that is with integrity, that is intelligent, and it moves the movement forward for everyone. I realize that Black Lives Matter is highlighting Black people. As a 39-year-old Black man, obviously that's very important to me. Having seen stories of 6 Black men and women lynched across the country, it's obviously very important to me. Having seen all these things, it's tremendously important to me. That does not lessen my commitment to the Latino community. That does not lessen my commitment to the Native Americans, to the indigenous people, to all of these different things. There are structures that are in place that sometimes people don't even realize that they are helping empower because they're ignorant to it. And I mean, they lack the knowledge. It's important for us to continue to speak up about those things. It's important for us to continue to shine a light on these things. It's important for us to put that in our narratives. It's important for us to fight for diversity. It's important for us to fight for LGBTQ. I'm so pissed that I have to say all Black Lives Matter. The reason I'm so pissed is because that should be a given. It doesn't matter, again, what we believe religiously, what we believe in all these other ways. None of that matters. All we're talking about is basic human rights. And you can take basic human rights away from any form of religion or system of belief, and still they are necessary for every person. Now, you can go back and, hey, that's not what I want to do, and they shouldn't live like that. That's fine. But they should be allowed to live, period. And so we need to continue to speak up about that. We need to continue to hammer it home. We need to continue educating our allies. We need to continue educating the people that are our enemies. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm not a turn the other cheek guy necessarily, but that doesn't mean you can't educate people while you do it. If you are saying what you need to say intelligently and they just aren't accepting it, if you're using facts and figures and they aren't accepting it, that's not your fault. You are doing your job. You have done your job. Protect your peace while you do it. If they just don't want to listen, then see out of your life. I've had people that I've known my entire life, literally since I was 4 years old, that I no longer talk to because it's obvious that they've never valued me beyond whatever value they put on the color of my skin. And we all need to have that to protect our own peace. Now, again, that doesn't just mean Black people. That doesn't just mean Latinos. That doesn't just mean females. That means everybody. You've got to protect your peace. And we've all got to, as a man, I've got to stand up for all the women out there. As a man, I've got to stand up for Black women who have historically stood up for Black men. As a man, I've got to still stand up for Latinos. Our cultures go back, to Rome, to Egypt, to Africa. And if we really look up the history, you're talking about the Arabic Peninsula, on and on and on. I could go on for hours about this stuff.
Right.
But we really need to concentrate on strengthening us, because we're in a place now where people are realizing that their equality that they've always talked about was never equal. That's why when we say, hey, we want equal treatment, they're like, well, you want more, you want better. That lets you know that they have better, and they know they have better. So we can't stop fighting for that. We can't stop talking about it. We can't stop sharing. We can't stop reposting just so that we get equal. Because when we get equal, we stand on our own. We're not asking for handouts. Let us live, and everything will be okay. Let us do us, and we'll all be fine. So we've got to continue to do that. And like I said, as artists, as people as I have 150 backers, those 150 backers need to know what I believe. And we've got to continue to push for that. And if it's just 150 people that know right now, fine. Because on the next campaign, another 150 are going to know. And on the next campaign, another 150. And on your campaign, 150. And vice versa. That's something that we have to keep doing.
No, that's, yes. It's like, yes. Like I don't even know what else to say. Just yes. All right. So now that we got that. Oh, so one more thing. Let everybody know where they can find your work, Brian J. Lambert, and your Kickstarter. So, pop all your stuff.
Okay. So, Facebook, it's actually Justice Comics. I'm in a fight with Facebook right now. They will not let me change it over to Wingless Comics. So, Facebook, Justice Comics. Instagram, @WinglessENT. Our website is www.winglessent.com. You can search on Kickstarter for the project. It's actually one of the projects we love, so it should be on your start page there. But also that's under Wingless Entertainment. You can find that with no problem. Justice the Fall. Twitter, Wingless Entertainment as well. And we're all pretty LinkedIn and pretty minimize how many sites, really focus on it. Brian J. Lambert, obviously on Instagram and on Facebook as well. And we come up immediately. It's all us.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, so let's get on to some of these crazy questions.
All right, let's get to goofy stuff. What we got?
All right, let's get to goofy stuff. And not so goofy, but you'll understand in a minute. All right, so let's say if you don't have no budgetary constraints. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. And you can choose. We're gonna pull this person out of the ether if we have to. And you can get any artist, any comic book artist, living or dead, to do a cover for you. Who would you pick?
Michael Turner. Okay. There's no question at all. When Michael Turner died, I cried, man. I always loved his art. Michael Turner, hands down. And speaking of which, when Nightfall comes out, people are going to see the Michael Turner influence on that. Michael Turner easily. 100%.
All right, cool. All right. I guess that was easy. So, all right. So now, if you got the golden ticket, and the big companies called you up, and it doesn't matter, Marvel, DC, any of these other companies, Dark Horse, whomever, it doesn't matter, and they said, Brian, whoever you want to write, pick your story, pick your characters, pick your team, right? And what art team, and your current art team is excluded. So what art team
Ooh,
would you choose to draw it?
ooh, that's that man. That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would go my art team. My artist would probably be Jim Chung.
Okay.
I loved his stuff going back to CrossGen, and there are very
Mm-hmm.
few people that know about CrossGen comics, but I actually love them. Own the whole series. I love Jim Chung's work. I've always wanted to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an artist who came out of CrossGen. I mean, a colorist, and he's an amazing guy now. I mean, he always has been. But Justin
Mm-hmm.
Ponser, he's an
Okay.
amazing colorist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's done some work for DC. He actually was diagnosed with cancer about a
Okay.
year and a half ago, unfortunately. So obviously
Mm-hmm.
his work and his production is slowed down while he heals up and fights that. So,
Mm-hmm.
good luck to him and all and prayers to him and his family for that. Um, what book though? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's hard. Okay, so this is okay. If we're gonna say what book, then I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I've
Okay.
always wanted to write a story. Batman,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I'm a huge Batman fan.
Mm-hmm.
In case anybody couldn't tell, I don't know how they wouldn't, but
Right.
Batman. But I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't want to write Bruce Wayne Batman. I
Okay.
would write Slade Wilson Batman. I've always
That's
had an idea
interesting.
for Slade Wilson Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've got a pretty yeah, I may do fanfic one day because it's a pretty developed story that I've always wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do, and I think that would be, along the Batman White Knight kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I mean that sounds really interesting. Because if I ever get to go up to Marvel, I know the book I'd want to do.
Well, what's yours, man?
It's for my wife. She wants me to write. She wants me to put together, I guess, something like the Guardians of the Galaxy, but it would be like Rocket Raccoon, Howard the Duck, Better Ray Bill, and Doctor Strange.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, I know it's a little weird.
Yeah, yeah, but that
It's
dynamic would work though. That dynamic is
mhm. you know,
yeah.
I was just like, okay, well, this one's for you, honey. Although I'll be honest with you, the book, if I was given the choice, I would write Captain Marvel,
Really.
really, because the one issue that I have, and I've never read any of it. I've only hear stories. You understand? I
Hmm.
probably should go read some of it. Is
Hmm.
that the characters just become very unlikable,
Yeah,
and I'm just
yeah,
like, why? It's
yeah.
not that hard to make her into a human.
I
You
think
can, you know.
story wise, that Civil War two really,
Mhm.
really affect. Well, I was like, I hate this lady now, but
Okay.
but that's in my opinion, that's what you were supposed to get out of Civil War two. You're supposed to hate her.
Right.
Um, and I believe there should be some form of redemption, or should have
Hmm.
been. I think they dropped the ball on the redemption arc a little bit,
Right.
where you kind of get where she was coming from a little bit more, and see that
Hmm.
she's flawed, and she kind of has the breakdown of like, oh man, I messed everything up, but
Right.
let me try. I think they kind of dropped the ball on that.
Yeah. And I'd also like to bring back who's it the other Captain Marvel, just Rambo,
Hmm. Yeah,
because I hate the fact that she just gets looked over. Because she
yeah,
was growing up, she was my Captain Marvel. Because
yeah,
I had the death of Captain Marvel, which was Marvel. You
yeah,
understand, which was important, and then I had her in the Avengers,
yeah,
and she was Captain Marvel, and it was never questioned.
yeah,
You understand? She was Captain
yeah,
Marvel, and
yeah,
she was the leader of the damn team.
yeah, yeah.
And now she's just like, oh yeah, well she's over here.
I think
You
she's.
understand?
I'm hoping after the Captain Marvel 2 movie, whenever that comes out,
Hmm.
she's probably going to get a resurgence at that point. I don't see
Yeah,
how it doesn't happen.
yeah,
So if they're doing a slow burn to wait for that, then I'm okay with it. I'm not happy, but I'm okay.
right. Yeah, yeah. And and the thing is, I like to see her come back, and I love her old costume.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's just like, she had a great power set. It's not like she was like weak or anything.
yeah, yeah. No,
You
no,
know,
definitely.
I mean, yeah. So it's just one of those things. But anyway, so on back to the goofy questions. All right. So some comparatives:
Mhm.
Godzilla or Gamera?
Ooh, Godzilla's king of the monsters, man. That's the end of the day, man. He drop kicked him, man.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've seen that clip, but he just drop kicked, man. You
Oh
can't beat
yeah.
that.
Oh no.
You can't beat that.
Let's see. Oh, Stan Lee or Jack Kirby?
Ooh, depends on what, but I'm gonna go Jack Kirby. If we're talking about really building out stories and stuff like that, go Jack Kirby. If you're talking about somebody iconic to headline your world, then Stan.
Okay. The Fifth Element or Stargate?
Fifth Element, man. Super green, bro. I'm super green.
Here's what I don't ask everybody: Bram Stoker or Mary Shelley?
Ooh, Mary Shelley is basically the founder of like what we would call sci-fi and horror now, man. She doesn't get the respect that she deserves. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm obviously a humongous Dracula fan. Again, if you read any of my stuff, you can tell the influence there. But she doesn't get the props that she deserves. Story was amazing. It's timeless. It's still out there. She wins hands down.
Gotcha. Predator or Alien?
Wait a minute. Okay, so timeline. Are we going pre-AVP the movie? Because I'm still disappointed in that movie. You had 3 predators and then they all got killed in 2 seconds. Don't do that. Don't do that. So if we're going pre-AVP that series, then I'm going Predator. If we're going post-AVP, Aliens wash.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers?
I don't even know why this is a debate, man. I had another friend who asked me this the other day. I was like, how are we even debating this? Like, they just shot Michael Myers and he was down and out for a minute, like for like a long time. Like Jason, you shoot him and he just looks at you like they exploded him completely and he was still running around killing people in a movie. Michael Myers can't get exploded and still, come on, it's not even a debate, man. Jason went to New York and then punched the dude's head off, man. Nah, man. Michael Myers goes to New York, man. He coming up off his Timberlands. He ain't gonna have a knife. They gonna take his mask. Nah, man. My New York people, which now you're one of them. Nah, man. You guys will not take that from Mike Myers. Jason's the man there.
Avengers or Justice League?
Ooh, depends on what, right? If we're talking about a human threat, Avengers, right? But if we're talking about an extraterrestrial godlike threat, Justice League easily. Now, if we're talking about a fight between the two, unless the Avengers got Scarlet Witch on there, again, there's no fight. We're not even talking about anything. Scarlet Witch better be there, and she better be screaming "No more Justice League" or something. Otherwise, the Justice League washes. All
right, I'll ask you a couple more. We'll wrap this up. John Byrne or George Perez?
I plead the fifth, man.
Really?
You can't make me choose. They're just too iconic. They're both too amazing, man. I can't. No, nope.
Okay. I flat out had people say, you're mean.
You're right. Yeah, right. Like, who does that, man? No. How can you choose?
No, it's hard. I know. What's funny is my wife, because she's an artist, and I asked her the question. She was like, she says, originally I would have answered. Her answer was originally she said she would have said George Perez, because she's a huge George Perez fan. We've always enjoyed his work. We've met him at shows. Really nice guy. Very nice man. Yeah. But she says over the years she's looked at John Byrne's work, and even though it's simpler than George's or perceived to be. She says, she's like really warmed to it because she's like, you can see what that man is doing in his storytelling and his structure and how solid it is. And she was just like, she was like, and because of that, it's become a very contentious question for her. She's just like, she's like, damn it.
Right. Yeah.
It's one of those things. All right. Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
Lord of the Rings, easy.
Okay.
Easy.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm a huge Tolkien fan, man. Tolkien is not the complete reason I write, but he wrote a real awesome letter to his editor one time. And he was just saying that England doesn't have any mythology, and that's why he wrote Lord of the Rings, basically, and that's why he wrote the Silmarillion and all his books. As a younger man, that really hit me hard. Being a black man, right? So we have folk tales and stuff, but we don't have any mythology. As black people, there is African mythology, but nothing for black people. So that really hit me hard. And just diving into that stuff and seeing how the time he took to invent the languages and all this and that, man, now I love Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't hold a candle to overall Lord of the Rings.
Gotcha. I'll ask you one more.
All right.
Next gen or DS9?
DS9. That's I don't like those two. I mean, there are two questions I don't like there because that was super painful. Super painful. I don't like it, but yeah, DS9, man.
DS9, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's I've rewatched it. Like what I do is I do a workout and I'll put that in, and I must have seen the damn series like 9 times.
See, yeah, man. It's great, man. Yeah. And that's a hard one. I mean, because if you say like, oh, original series versus DS9, I'm gonna go DS9 easy. But if you're going next gen, that's hard, man. That's hard.
I got Argo Comics. He says he prefers Perez for the artwork, but Byrne for the writing. Which
the Superman arc he did, Byrne did, So good point.
Yep, this is true. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's Dan Shin, awesome dude.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of his work. That's
Argo Comics.
Yeah.
No, Dan Shin. I had him on I actually got a post of his video. We got cut off, and we had to do it through Zoom. I got to post this thing.
Wow, okay. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Right. Yeah, no, he's great. So, Brian, man, thank you so much for being here. And one more time, please let everybody know where they can find your work.
All right, thank you very much, Indie Comics Explained. I appreciate the time. We're on Facebook at Justice Comics. We're on Instagram at Wingless Entertainment. We're on Twitter at Wingless Entertainment. You can find me obviously on both Facebook and Instagram at Brian J. Lambert. We're on Kickstarter right now. You can look up Wingless Entertainment. We've got our Kickstarter running. We're about halfway through. We got some more stretch goals to take down. I hope you guys engage with us and support and talk to us. That's also at Wingless Comics or Justice the Fall. We will be around, and hopefully we'll be back. We get to chat some more. I'm going to have some questions for you next time.
All right.
Try and stump you.
All right, man. Thank you so much, Brian, for being here. And people, please like, subscribe, let your friends know. Awesome creators on here. And please, back Brian's project, back my project, and go find yourself some independent comics. There's a lot of great ones out there. Thank you so much, and I'll be talking to you all soon. Have a good night.